Okay, great. I think we're starting to slow down on the participants entering here, so I'm going to go ahead and dive in. Thank you again. Happy Thursday. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for this quick accessibility session, continuing ADA education with Revise. So we're going to talk about how to make your local government website accessible, prioritizing online inclusivity with Revise. Your host for today's webinar is me, Hannah Shramsky. I'm the marketing specialist at Revize. If you've been to any of our sessions in the past, you've seen me before. So hello again, everybody. And I've included my email as well so that you can feel free to reach out at any time for any question, comment, or concern. Hannah@revize.com. Our agenda for today's session. So I just wanted to break it down in advance so you know what to expect as we move through today's webinar. First, we're going to talk about Revize for those of you who maybe aren't clients or are newer to your municipality who uses Revize. We're going to talk about details, facts, and dates of the new rule, kind of get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to decode WCAG together. We're going to talk through the exceptions to the rule because there are a few. Then I'll give you 10 actionable steps to make government web content accessible. I'm going to share with you the revised accessibility offerings, and then I'm going to give you the number for the ADA info line and the resources I used for today's presentation. So, a little bit about Revize. We are the government website experts, and we've been in the business for over 26 years. So, I think we've earned that title. We specialize in beautiful, accessible, and functional web design, CMS, and web applications for local governments. We're headquartered in Troy, Michigan. So, I'm out here in the Detroit metropolitan area, for those of you who are wondering. And we have built over 3,600 websites, and that ranges from the municipal sites, counties, cities, villages, towns, townships, to many other special agencies like libraries, housing authorities, water authorities, police and fire departments, airports, different associations, election sites, health and utility services, parks and recreation, tribes, even churches, and so much more. So we really do it all here. Next, on your screen here is our company's Linktree QR code. So if you take out your phone and scan the QR code on the screen, it'll take you right to our company Linktree where you can access our company website. You can read our blog. You can check out previous webinars we've held this year. You can subscribe to our newsletter, which is how all of the webinar registration emails come out. You'll just go to revize.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and on the bottom right side, you'll see a text box where you can add your email address in and it will subscribe you to our newsletter. So if you don't want to miss out on future webinars, be sure to do that as well. This will just help you stay connected with the Revize community so you don't miss a product launch, website launch announcements, webinar registrations, any upcoming trade shows we're attending. So just a great way to stay connected. And I will put this QR code back up on the screen at the end as well. So if you don't get a chance to scan it right now, no problem. So let's start talking about today's topic, online accessibility. Why is it important? Well, first of all, as we all know, there are legal implications. So online accessibility is now required by the DOJ, and web content is covered by the ADA. So local government agencies can be sued if your websites are not WCAG compliant, as we know. So we'd like to avoid costly ADA lawsuits. Also, there's a moral duty involved. Government officials have a moral obligation to their constituency to provide equal opportunities for civic participation and equal access to public services and information for all citizens, regardless of their abilities. And there's also business goals to be met. So this may seem simple, but it's worth saying the more people that can access your agency's web content, the more reach, growth, and visibility your agency will have, which can help you achieve strategic goals as well. It's just a nice positive side effect of accessible web content. Now, let's talk about all of the information surrounding ADA compliance. So, 2 years ago, in April 2024, the United States Department of Justice set requirements for web and mobile app accessibility for state and local governments with a new rule. The requirement states that the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG 2.1 Level AA, is the technical standard for state and local governments' web content and mobile apps. So state and local governments, web content, and mobile apps, in most cases, need to meet WCAG 2.1 level AA. I say that because there are some exceptions. In limited situations, some kinds of web and mobile app content do not have to meet these WCAG 2.1 level AA standards, and we're going to talk about those exceptions. The online ADA compliance dates. So this is the information that has changed in the past couple of months. In April 2026, the DOJ did publish an interim final rule that revised the regulations implementing Title II of the ADA to extend the compliance dates for the requirements for web content and mobile app accessibility. Many of you probably already know this because it means you've been granted an extra year to get your website in compliance with the ADA. So that compliance deadline for local government entities with a population of 50,000 or more is extended from this year, April 2026, all the way to April 2027. And the compliance date for local government entities with a population less than 50,000 and any special district is extended from April 2027 all the way to April 2028. So you have 2 years from now, roughly, to be in compliance. So it's great that you're here today and continuing that ADA education so that you have time to get everything in order before these compliance dates hit. So what is WCAG? WCAG stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and they serve as the international standard for digital accessibility. They were developed by the World Wide Web Consortium, which is stylized as W3C. WCAG covers a wide range of recommendations for making web content more accessible to those who live with disabilities and more usable to all users in general. These guidelines are divided up into 4 principles, the POUR principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So each guideline, each WCAG guideline falls under one of these buckets. These are the 4 pillars of WCAG, the POUR principles. We'll start with perceivable. This means users can recognize the presented information via sight, hearing, or touch. Operable. Users can navigate and operate the user interface via alternative input methods. Understandable, which means users can make sense of the textual, visual, and audio content and available operations. And robust. A wide variety of web browsers and assistive technologies can interpret the information, making it accessible to all. Let's talk specifically about WCAG 2.1 level AA. So what do these numbers mean? What do these letters mean? The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines offer 3 tiers of conformance. Level A, which is the minimum level, level AA, mid-range, and level AAA, AAA, which is maximum. Each level builds on the previous one, meaning it's including all of those previous deadlines in that one. The numbers refer to the versions over time, and they represent how guidelines have evolved. And WCAG 2.2 is actually the most recently published version of WCAG, but remember, WCAG 2.1 level AA is the technical standard required for government web content by the DOJ. Now let's dive into the exceptions. Let's discuss the web content that is exempt from WCAG 2.1 level AA standards. So the first one, this is a big one, archived web content. So web content that meets all 4 of these following points would not need to comply with WCAG 2.1 level AA. So the content has to be created before the date of your local government entity's compliance requirement, or it reproduces paper documents or the contents of other physical media that were created before the government must comply with the rule, and the content is only kept for reference, research, or record keeping, and the content is kept in a special area on your website for archive content, so an archive that you create, and the content has not been changed since it was archived. So all 4 of these and statements must be true in order for your archived web content to be exempt, which that could be a decent amount of content on your website. So this is worth noting. The second exception is pre-existing conventional electronic documents. So documents that meet both of the following points typically do not need to meet WCAG 2.1 level AA standards. So the documents are word processing, presentation, PDF, or spreadsheet files, and they were available on the local government website before the compliance date that is required for your specific entity. So both of those things must be true. They're and statements. And in that case, your content would be exempt. Exception number 3, content posted by a third party where the third party is not posting due to a contractual, licensing, or other arrangements with a public entity. So content that is posted by third parties on your local government website would not need to meet WCAG 2.1 level AA standards. The fourth and final exception is individualized documents that are password protected. So documents that meet all 3 of the following points do not need to meet WCAG standards. The documents are word processing, presentation, PDF, or spreadsheet files, and the documents are about a specific person, property, or account, and the documents are password protected or otherwise secure. So these documents are not meant for all residents' eyes anyway, meaning they don't need to be ADA compliant because they're private. So now that we've discussed what is WCAG, the principles, and know what government web content is required to be ADA compliant versus what is exempt, it's time to determine which components of your local government website must comply with WCAG. So you'll do this on your own time. You'll look through these exceptions, take an inventory of what needs to comply with the ADA and what is exempt. And then once that web content is identified and you know what you're working with, the next step then is to figure out what accessibility fixes are needed and start that ADA remediation. So we're going to start talking about our 10 actionable steps for remediation. The first thing we'll discuss are page titles. So accurate page titles are crucial for orientation, helping people know where they are on a website and move between the pages open in their browser. So the first thing a screen reader would say when a user goes to a different web page is the page title. So you have to make sure the title is different from other pages on the website. And you'll look at a web page title and or listen to it with a screen reader, and you'll check that there is a title that adequately and briefly describes the content of the page while also distinguishing the page from others. The next one is alt text. So alt text is used by people who cannot see an image. These text alternatives convey the purpose of an image, like pictures, illustrations, and charts on a website. The text provided should be functional and provide an equivalent user experience to the photo. Now, equivalent is a key word in that statement. For example, an appropriate text alternative for a search button that uses a magnifying glass as an icon would be search instead of magnifying glass. So if you look at the button, the search button, and yes, it uses a magnifying glass as the picture, as the icon. However, we want our visually impaired users to have an equivalent experience. So instead of marking that as a magnifying glass, we want to mark that as a search button and say search instead. So I hope that's a helpful example to help you understand that equivalent component. If an image conveys useful information for interacting with or understanding the page content, then it requires alt text. So you can check web pages with the Wave tool to locate any missing alt text and add it in where necessary. This is a really big one, and I'm going to take a brief break from our 10 steps and show you what this Wave tool is. So if you haven't heard of it, Wave is a web accessibility evaluation tool. It's free to use. You can access it with that URL at the bottom of the screen there, and you can enter your web page address, and it will help you check for any WCAG issues. So just wanted to show this to you and let you know you can use this in your remediation process. Next, we're going to talk about fonts. So government websites need to have clear and consistent headings and highly legible text. Typography choices have a huge impact on accessibility, and web content must have a typeface that is designed for easy reading for a diverse audience, regardless of abilities. So you'll want to use common, easy to read fonts and allow users to control the font size as well. Fonts known for maximum web accessibility are Times New Roman, Verdana, Cabri, Helvetica, and Tahoma. So sometimes you can be tempted to use those beautiful flowery fonts on your website because it looks nice, but then that will not be accessible to all users. So this is an easy change where you can go through and make sure your fonts are accessible and consistent across your website. The next one we're going to talk about is color contrast. So Some people cannot read text if there's not a sufficient contrast and luminance between the text and background. So, high contrast, for example, dark text on a light background or bright text on a dark background, is required by some people with visual impairments, including older people who may lose their contrast sensitivity from aging or other visual impairments. While some people need high contrast, for others, including people who live with dyslexia, bright colors, aka high luminance, may not be readable and they require low luminance. So this is where an accessibility widget comes into play and would be super helpful for allowing each user to have their own optimal settings on a website and adjust color contrast to whatever they need in their specific scenario. Very helpful for contrast ratio issues. And you can always use the wave tool to check, or you can check your color contrast by turning off the color to show the web page in grayscale and see if you're still able to clearly read the text. That's a helpful tip. Okay, so next we'll talk about headings. Headings on your website should have a meaningful hierarchy, 1, 2, 3, 4, and need to be marked so that users can accurately navigate throughout the website, navigate the headings, including those who use the keyboard and or a screen reader. Check that all your pages have headings and don't skip levels. So I just have a little example there listed on the screen. Heading level 1 is marked as H1, heading level 2 is marked as H2, heading level 3, H3, so on and so forth. Next, we'll talk about resizing text. So some people need to enlarge web content in order to read it or change other aspects of the text display like font and line spacing. Most browsers do allow users to change text size through text size settings, text-only zoom, or page zoom. So if a page is designed improperly, they can be unusable when text size is changed. The text might disappear, the line space might disappear, sections might overlap, etc. So what you can do to check is increase the text size on your web pages and make sure that all the text gets larger, text doesn't get cut off, content doesn't overlap, all the buttons and controls are visible and usable, and that horizontal scrolling is not required when reading larger blocks of text. And then if you need to go in and change font, change text sizing, you could do that. Next, captions and subtitles. This is another really important one. So captions are a text version of the speech and non-speech audio information needed to understand web content. They're, of course, displayed within the media player and synchronized with the audio if done correctly. The captions are used to provide content to people who are deaf or anyone else who cannot hear the audio. They're also used by people who just process information, process written information better than audio for whatever reason it may be. So it's important to ensure that all videos on your local government site have accurate subtitles, unless, of course, they're archived and exempt. Just wanted to remind you of that. I know a lot of people have a lot of older meetings on their websites, so just be familiar with those exceptions and do what you need to do. But yeah, any meetings or public hearings that are on your website or broadcast live streams require live captioning as well. And just remember, automatically generated captions are not sufficient. It will require you to review and edit to ensure accuracy. So don't rely on those automatically generated captions. They are almost always, at least in some parts, incorrect. So transcripts. When do we need transcripts for ADA compliance? For pre-recorded audio-only media, transcripts are required. For pre-recorded video-only content, descriptive transcripts or audio descriptions are required. And the process for providing transcripts is as follows. Get a text version of the audio, format the transcription, put it online, and make it easy for users to find the transcript from the audio or video file. So you might have, maybe you do a local podcast that you put on your website. You need to make sure that there's a transcript accessible for all users to use in case they are hearing impaired. The next one is keyboard access. So many individuals cannot use a mouse or rely on a keyboard or assistive technology to interact with websites. So accessible websites enable people to access all the content and functionality like links, forms, media controls, etc. via the keyboard. You're able to actually check the navigation yourself. You can click in the address bar, put your mouse aside and don't touch it. Then you'll press the tab key to move through the elements on the page. You can press Shift Tab to go backwards. To move within elements like drop-down lists and menu bars, press the arrow keys, press Enter or Space to select items. Also, the keyboard focus should be visible and follow a logical order through the page elements, which could be like a border or a highlight that moves as you tab through the website. And you'll make sure that you can tab to all, tab away, make sure there's a logical tab order. There's that visual focus that I just mentioned, full keyboard functionality, drop-down list accessibility, and image link activation. And if you notice an issue, you can go ahead and remediate yourself, or feel free to reach out to your website provider, notify them that you found an issue, and see how they can help fix that keyboard access for you. So next one is forms accessibility, and this one is a bit more complex and has multiple components, but labels, keyboard access, clear instructions, and effective error handling are crucial in order for your online forms to be accessible. And I know a lot of local government entities use online forms for job applications, FOIA requests, many functions for forms online. So we just need to make sure that they're accessible. So you'll find any form on the web page, whether it's a single text box or a more complicated form with fields, buttons, checkboxes, and drop-down lists. Check that your forms are keyboard navigable, have correct labels, are positioned accurately, the mandatory fields are clearly indicated, and make sure they're not reliant on color alone, because those who are colorblind will not be able to know that those are mandatory. Make sure the instructions appear before they're needed, and that clear guidance is provided in the event of an error message, and that those errors are easily findable and fixable. Again, we're not relying on color alone in those instances. So make sure all of those things are in order, and then add or edit any elements of your forms as needed if you find any issues. Okay, so those are our 10 actionable steps for ADA compliance and how to make your government website more accessible. I did want to include this slide from the World Wide Web Consortium just about prioritizing issues so you can formulate a game plan going forward to make sure that you're compliant before your compliance date. So you want to make sure you use resources effectively by addressing high impact, easy to resolve issues first. So any web pages that are super popular, and any easy fixes that you can do, like adding alt tags or, making sure all your fonts are accessible, address those first, because it can help you achieve everything more effectively. So you can, start with those issues that are easier to fix, build motivation, demonstrate success. Prioritize the development of accessible templates and components to support the creation of accessible content in the future as time goes on. Prioritize visual design to synchronize with an ongoing rebranding activity within the organization. Prioritize recruitment to support anticipated hiring and acquisitions. Deprioritize issues that are related to tools or systems that are expected to change soon anyway. So know if there's any change that's going to be happening before the compliance dates even hit, and then maybe don't make that a first priority. Another big one that I like to just mention is just make sure you and your whole team are doing continuing ADA education like this webinar. It'll be really helpful for once the compliance dates hit to make sure that instead of having to do constant remediation of web page content, that you're creating accessible and compliant content in the moment as you publish and upload things. So that you're always, if you change a picture on your website, you're always adding a descriptive alt tag when you upload it, instead of having to go back through and check everything and make sure everything's compliant. Make sure you're using accessible fonts as you add and edit and upload to your website. That's going to be the key. So if everyone is becoming more familiar and becoming more aware of these WCAG standards and what's expected by the DOJ, that'll be a lot easier for going forward to make sure that everyone just creates accessible content in the moment. Because what can happen is your website is going to be ADA compliant upon launch day, but then as soon as a picture gets added or content gets changed, it's easy for it to become not compliant if you have webmasters who don't fully understand WCAG standards. So anyway, kind of a side rant there, but just good to make sure you're doing this continuing education and making sure everyone on your team who has their fingers in the website knows about these standards and how to create that accessible content. Okay, so I did want to talk briefly about the Revize Accessibility Toolkit. And just know you're not alone in the creation and maintenance of online accessible spaces. We understand that this can be a big, daunting task, and we're here to support you. So, our accessibility resources are designed to relieve government staff of the time-consuming and overwhelming ADA fixes while providing an inclusive online experience for residents. So, also, you don't have to be a Revize client for this part. A couple of these tools can be added to any website, not just Revize websites. So I hope you stick around to listen. RZ Assist is our accessibility widget and ADA scanning tool. It can scan, read, adjust, convert, highlight, translate, summarize, and download audio of website content. It also offers tailored profiles like vision impaired, ADHD friendly, dyslexia, cognitive disability, which makes it easier for users to modify website content to their specific needs with just one click of a button. The interface gives site visitors full control and the ability to scan web pages for WCAG issues, which is really powerful and cool. And the backend enables webmasters to perform full website scans to locate and diagnose WCAG issues, which will be helpful during your remediation process. Also, a disclaimer about all accessibility widgets, not just our own. Adding a widget to your site does not automatically make the entire website accessible and protect you from ADA lawsuits. It just gives more control to the user to change aspects of web content as needed, which offers more accessibility. Like what we talked about previously with the resizing text, changing color contrast and luminance, and more of the things like that. It gives the power to the user and allows them to make your website accessible to their needs. So it's a great tool, and it really helps you fulfill that moral obligation of making sure that this website can be used by everyone. RZ ClearDocs is the next one I'll mention because it addresses often the biggest challenge for local governments, which is those PDFs, those darn PDFs. So ClearDocs is an automated PDF to HTML accessibility solution that transforms PDFs on demand, which ensures that public documents are easier to read, searchable by users and search engines, and more aligned with modern accessibility standards. So with one click of a button, users can instantly access HTML versions of PDFs, which eliminates the need for staff to manually remediate each document, which is often the biggest, most daunting, most time-consuming, painful part of the process. So this is a fantastic tool to add to your repertoire. Additional functions of RZ ClearDocs include detailed outline, language translation, summary, and an AI-powered Ask Questions feature that gives users synthesized answers to user queries. So it's like an AI chatbot. Both RZ Assist and RZ ClearDocs can be added to any website. You do not have to be a Revize client. We also offer a PDF remediation service where our experts will remediate the PDFs on your website and make sure they're ADA compliant. We offer an ADA compliant scan and fix service, which is ongoing scanning and WCAG remediation by our staff, which ensures your website remains accessible when people continue to edit it, and kind of takes that remediation task off of your plate, your very full plate. We also have an AI alt tag generator, which is super cool. It automatically generates descriptive alternate text for images when uploaded. So that also, as people are learning ADA compliance, that's one less thing that they have to remember to do every time because your AI alt tag generator would create it for you. I love that tool. We also have an accessibility checker built into the Revize CMS and an AI content generator. And of course, our websites are built to be accessible at the core. So thank you for listening to that little Revize segment. And finally, I do want to shout out the ADA information line. Did you know you could just call the DOJ up? If you have questions about the ADA, if you're editing your website, you're in the middle, you're, knees deep in remediation, you can call the U.S. Department of Justice ADA information line and speak with an accessibility specialist directly, which is really helpful. Your call is confidential and they're open Monday through Friday. So, take a little picture of this slide. You can call them up and ask them any question you might have and hear from the experts who are working specifically for the DOJ and deeply know the ADA. Here is the compilation of resources that I used for today's presentation. Most of it was taken straight from ada.gov, straight from the DOJ rule, and from WCAG itself. So just wanted to include this list here so you can see what I used. And there's links in here. I can share the slides so that you can actually click the links to anyone who would like. And that about concludes everything that I have for today. So thank you so much for joining us today. As you may have noticed in the agenda, there is no Q&A session planned for today. I just ask that you reach directly out to us with any questions, comments, or concerns that you might have. We can set up a call or we can shoot you a quick email response back and make sure that we communicate with everyone that way. Like I said, I can share slides with anyone who reaches out. Hannah@revize.com is my email. Or you can head to our website, revize.com/contact, and you can fill out that form there and we will be in touch with you. Again, you can scan that QR code that takes you to our company link tree. And we can talk more in depth about all the solutions that Revize has to offer and any other questions you might have. Just because I myself am not an ADA expert, I rather am an expert at repackaging this information in a hopefully more digestible way for everybody. So again, please reach out so we can get our ADA developers and experts and remediators on the case for you. If you're a client who has a question that's specific to your website or your sales agreement, please just reach out to us. You can email me, you can fill out a form online on our website, or if you are familiar with your account manager, you can reach out to them too, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. I hope that today's webinar has been informative and helpful for you on how to make your government website a little more accessible before the deadlines. And you can take these 10 actionable steps and apply them to your government's website to make it a more inclusive experience for everyone. Also, today's session has been recorded and it will be uploaded to the Revize website under the webinars webpage either this afternoon or by tomorrow. So you can reference it anytime or share it with a colleague who couldn't make it, whatever you need to do. And also, please do be sure to join us on Thursday, August 13th for a Revize tourism website webinar, something we've never done before. We're going to show you how to build a tourism website with Revize. So that'll be with Joseph Nagrant, Vice President of Business Development and Marketing at Revize. So we're going to be honored to have him join us. If you're subscribed to the Revize newsletter, you'll get a registration email for that webinar 2 weeks before we have it. So with all of that being said, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a lovely 4th of July, an amazing summer, and we will see you guys in August. So awesome. Okay, I'm checking through the chat here. Yeah, please just email me, hannah@revize.com. I'll be happy to share slides and any other questions that you may have. Awesome. Thank you everyone so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.